I'm David Fleming from the Disciples Ignited YouTube channel, where we're focused on Jesus, advancing his kingdom and preparing his disciples. Now today we're going to start a short study on the Brownsville revival that took place in Pensacola, Florida. Now this revival outpouring that started in Pensacola, Florida on Father's Day, June 18th, 1995 at Brownsville Assembly of God literally was carried all over the world. Well, while it shared many of the same physical phenomena that were occurring at Toronto, Canada, and at London, England, at Holy Trinity Brompton Church, the revival outpouring at Brownsville really was more evangelistic in nature. Like I've said in previous videos, every revival outpouring has its own nuance. It has its own special features to it. Well, Steve Hill, who was the Assemblies of God evangelist, he was the vessel whom the Lord used to start the Brownsville revival that took place. He had previously ministered with many of the revival leaders in Argentina because he had been previously a missionary to Argentina for many, many years. And he had just recently returned from a trip to London, England, where he was prayed for by some of the people at Holy Trinity Brompton Church. And then he went to Brownsville, where he was going to minister. He went to Pensacola with great anticipation that the Lord was going to do something awesome. And you know, the Lord did. However, he wasn't aware of how awesome it was going to be, that this was going to be a revival outpouring that was literally going to touch the nations of the world. Well, John Kilpatrick, who had been the pastor of Brownsville Assembly of God for 13 years up to that time, he had done much to prepare the church for the revival outpouring. For years, he had been using the Sunday night services for prayer, and he had also spent much of his own personal time in prayer, praying specifically for revival. Well, that's Father's Day came Sunday morning, and Steve Hill ministered that day. At first, the service just seemed like a normal one, outside of the fact that Evangelist Hill repeatedly was telling the congregation that the Lord was about to move in their midst mightily. Now, I've seen recordings of that first service, and you know, it was good, but it wasn't anything like you would think was going to birth such a powerful and awesome revival outpouring. But it did. Let me read to you what was written about that service. Steve Hill was right. When he gave the altar call, 1,000 people flooded the altar for salvation and other prayer requests. Pastor Kilpatrick says, I looked out in the congregation and it seemed like grenades were being detonated around the building as people, first in one area, then in another area, fell to the ground or to their knees under the power of God. Pastor Kilpatrick explained that when the spiritual river rushed into the sanctuary, it sounded like a train or a mighty wind. He also said that although he was a very conservative pastor in his actions and his demeanor, suddenly his ankles just flipped over sideways and he couldn't stand up any longer. He wrote that the powerful flow of the river of God brought refreshing life, anointing, healing, unity, holiness, and new depths of intimacy with God. Little did he know that it was going to touch hundreds of thousands of people in the weeks, months, and years to come. Oh, there's so much more that I'm going to share with you about the Brownsville revival. So join me tomorrow.